The next 48 hours were a whirlwind for Anna Smith. Papers piled high on her desk, spreadsheets filled with incomprehensible figures sprawled across her computer screen, and endless cups of coffee littered her workspace. She dove headfirst into the reports, determined to unearth the real stories behind the numbers. Anna spent hours speaking to employees across every level of Andersen Enterprises, learning their experiences, listening to their frustrations, and collecting insights that would breathe life into cold, sterile data. The faces she spoke to reminded her of her own hard-working, often overlooked, but essential to the company's heart. But not everyone watched her efforts with admiration. As Anna passed through hallways and open offices, whispers followed her, some curious, some impressed, others quietly resentful. Among them, William Reed's glare was the hardest to ignore. His disapproving eyes followed her movements with a mixture of disdain and suspicion, a silent challenge she couldn't shake. By the evening before her presentation, exhaustion draped over Anna like a heavy coat. Her office, still unfamiliar, was dimly lit, its silence broken only by the scratch of her pen and the hum of her computer. Her shoulders slumped, and her hair fell in loose strands around her weary face. Empty coffee cups sat abandoned on the corner of her desk like trophies of a long-fought battle. A gentle knock startled her. Looking up, she saw Sophia Andersen, Peter's 12-year-old daughter, peeking shyly through the door frame. "Hi," Sophia said softly. "Dad said you were still working. I thought, maybe you'd want some company." Anna blinked in surprise, then smiled a warm, grateful smile that softened the lines of fatigue on her face. "Thank you, Sophia. I could use some company right now." Sophia settled into the chair across from Anna, curling her legs underneath her as she watched quietly. In the dim light, Anna couldn't help but notice how much Sophia resembled her father. The same sharp, determined eyes, the same strong set of her jaw. Yet there was a softness in the girl, a vulnerability untouched by the burdens Peter carried. After a few moments, Sophia broke the silence. "Dad talks about you a lot, you know. He says you're changing things here." Anna felt her cheeks flush. She looked down, fidgeting with the edge of a paper. "Your dad's being very kind. I'm just doing my best," Anna replied softly. Sophia tilted her head, curiosity flickering in her gaze. "What's it like, going from a janitor to?" This she gestured to the office around them. Anna paused, the weight of the question settling on her shoulders. She looked up at the girl and answered honestly. "It's terrifying," she admitted. "Most days I feel like I'm pretending, like someone will figure out I don't belong here. But then I remember something. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing it for the people who work here, the ones whose voices don't get heard." Sophia's expression turned thoughtful. "I think I get it," she said quietly. "It's like when Dad has to make hard choices. He always says it's for the good of everyone, even when it's tough." The words hit Anna like a quiet revelation. For the first time, she saw Peter Andersen not just as the powerful CEO, but as a man, one trying to balance impossible decisions and responsibilities. It stirred something inside her, a renewed understanding of why she was here and what she had to fight for. With that realization, Anna turned back to her work. Sophia stayed with her, playing the role of an unexpected assistant. Together, they organized notes, practiced snippets of the presentation, and even shared a few quiet laughs. For the first time in days, the weight on Anna's chest seemed to lift. By Friday morning, Anna was both physically drained and emotionally resolute. The first rays of the sun filtered into her small apartment as she stood in front of the mirror. The tailored suit Peter had insisted she wear fit perfectly simple, sharp, and dignified. It was a reflection of who she was now, no longer just the janitor in the shadows, but not yet a polished executive either. She was something different, something new. And maybe that was her greatest strength. Arriving at Andersen Enterprises, Anna stepped into the large conference room on the 49th floor, her heart thundering in her chest. The investors were already seated, their sharp eyes watching her with calculated curiosity. The executives lined the far side of the table, their expressions unreadable. At the head of the room stood Peter Anderson, his steady gaze locking onto hers. The air felt thick, every breath deliberate. For a fleeting second, Anna's legs threatened to freeze beneath her. But then she remembered Sophia's quiet encouragement, Peter's unwavering trust, and the countless stories she carried on her shoulders. Anna stepped forward. "Good morning," she began, her voice calm but steady, surprising even herself. "Today, I want to share a story not just of numbers or profits, but of the people who make this company what it is." As she spoke, her voice grew stronger, filled with quiet conviction. She told them what she had learned, stories of workers solving problems management didn't know existed, small inefficiencies that could be improved without sacrifices, and overlooked innovations hidden among everyday employees. She gave voice to the people who had carried the company's heart for years but had gone unnoticed. The room was silent. Investors who moments ago looked indifferent now leaned forward, their gazes focused intently on her. Even the skeptical executives listened, caught off guard by the clarity and truth of her words. When Anna finished, a pause hung in the air, heavy, expectant. Then Mr. Kamaru began to applaud. One by one, others joined him, their faces marked with respect. Peter stood, his expression a mixture of pride and admiration. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying across the room, "this is the kind of vision we need not just for the future of Anderson Enterprises, but for the people who make it thrive." As the meeting adjourned, Anna allowed herself a quiet breath of relief. She had done it. Not for herself, but for every employee whose stories had shaped her words. Walking out of the room, Peter fell into step beside her. "You were incredible, Anna," he said, his voice warm with sincerity. Anna smiled faintly, her heart still racing. "I just told the truth. That's all." Peter nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "Sometimes that's all it takes to change everything." And as Anna looked out across the bustling office floor, she knew this was just the beginning, not only for the company but for herself. For the first time in her life, she wasn't invisible. She had found her voice. And the world was listening. The following weeks blurred into a relentless cycle of work for Anna Smith. She threw herself into the task Peter had entrusted to her, spending long hours combing through reports, walking factory floors, and listening to employees from every level of Anderson Enterprises. Each story she heard and each piece of data she uncovered became a thread in the tapestry she was determined to weave, one that proved her approach was not only valid but necessary. But with progress came pressure. Anna could feel it like a weight pressing against her chest. She was caught between two worlds, straddling a fine line, no longer just the janitor but not yet accepted as a true executive. Whispers followed her wherever she went, admiring, curious, and at times cutting with envy and resentment. The coldest glare came from William Reed, the company's CFO. He rarely spoke to her directly, but his disdain was palpable in every boardroom glance and hushed conversation. Late one evening, when most of the office had emptied, Anna was still in her corner, surrounded by papers and a half-empty cup of coffee that had long gone cold. A raised voice suddenly broke the silence, leaking through the crack of Peter Anderson's office door. Anna hesitated, her pen stilled mid-scribble, but the sharp tone of William Reed's voice carried clearly. "You're throwing everything away, Peter." Anna's heart sank as she caught the anger in Reed's words. "First you bring that janitor into executive meetings, and now you're handing her critical projects? Have you completely lost your judgment?" Peter's reply was quieter, his voice taut but unwavering. "Watch your words, William. Anna brought something to this company that we've been missing for years. She has a perspective we need, one we've overlooked because we spent too long up here in our ivory tower." William's voice rose, laced with contempt. "She's going to ruin us, and you're too blind to see it." Anna stepped back into the shadows, her pulse pounding in her ears. She knew her presence had ruffled feathers, but hearing it confirmed so blatantly stung. That night, as she sat in her small apartment, sleep eluded her. Doubts, sharp and relentless, crept into her mind. Had she made a mistake? Was she out of her depth? Maybe William was right, and she was causing more harm than good. The next morning, with dark circles under her eyes and determination battling against her growing fears, Anna headed straight for Peter's office. She had to say something, even if it meant stepping down. She couldn't allow herself to be the cause of conflict or failure. But when she walked in, her words faltered. Peter sat slumped in his chair, gazing through the tall window, his back to the door. The early light painted the room in gold, but his silhouette looked tired and burdened. Beside him, on the edge of his desk, sat a framed photo of his late wife and daughter, Sophia Anderson. Mr. Anderson, Anna's voice was soft, hesitant. Peter turned to her slowly, and for the first time she saw the exhaustion in his eyes. The man who so often carried the weight of the company with unwavering strength now looked human, vulnerable. "Anna," he said, his voice rougher than usual. I'm sorry you had to hear that argument last night." Anna stood still for a moment, her carefully prepared words slipping away. She had come ready to quit, to flee from this daunting role. But in that moment, seeing the weight Peter carried, she realized she couldn't. Stepping forward, she sat down in the chair across from him. "Mr. Anderson, Peter," she began, her tone steady but gentle. "We need to talk. About everything. About the company, our expectations, the challenges we're facing." The conversation that followed unfolded like sunlight breaking through a storm. It wasn't hurried or formal. It was raw, honest, and long overdue. Peter opened up about his fears, his struggles to balance fatherhood and leadership, his mistakes, and his relentless drive to keep his late wife's dreams alive. Anna, too, let her guard down, confessing the crushing pressure she felt to prove herself. She spoke of her doubts, the voices whispering that she didn't belong, and the weight of trying to carry the trust he had placed in her. By the time they were done, the room felt lighter. The tension that had weighed on both of them seemed to dissolve. Peter leaned back in his chair, a genuine smile, small but sincere, crossing his face. "Anna," he said softly, "thank you. For your honesty, for your courage, and for believing in what we're doing here. I don't know exactly what lies ahead for this company, but I do know that with you on this team, we have a real chance." Anna smiled back, a quiet resolve taking root inside her. "We'll figure it out together," she replied. When Anna left Peter's office that morning, the day seemed brighter somehow. The challenges ahead still loomed, but now she carried more than just the responsibilities he had given her. She carried trust, connection, and a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just the janitor anymore, nor was she a faceless executive in a polished suit. She was Anna Smith, a woman who had something rare and valuable to offer, and she would not let that go to waste. The autumn sun streamed through the large windows of her office on the 49th floor. From her vantage point, Anna Smith could see the city sprawling below, its buildings glowing in hues of gold and crimson. For a moment, her fingertips rested lightly against the cool glass, as if reaching for the life she'd left behind. 6 months. 6 months since Peter Anderson had taken a chance on her. 6 months of challenges, doubts, growth, and transformation. She had become something else, no longer invisible but not wholly part of the corporate elite. She was the bridge between two worlds that had never truly understood each other. A soft knock broke her thoughts. "Come in," Anna said, turning to see Peter step into her office. His smile, though tired, was warm. "Ready for the big meeting?" he asked. Anna took a steadying breath, the familiar flutter of nerves in her chest. "As ready as I'll ever be. I still can't believe we've come this far." Peter walked closer, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. "It's because of you, Anna. Your insight, your perspective. You've made a difference here." His words warmed her heart, though they carried a twinge of guilt. She hesitated, the weight of a hidden truth gnawing at her resolve. "Peter," she began cautiously, "there's something I need to tell you before." The door burst open before she could finish. William Reed strode in, his sharp eyes glinting with thinly veiled malice. "The investors are here," he announced, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "and they're especially eager to see our rising star." Peter's posture stiffened, his tone clipped. "We'll be right there, William." As William disappeared down the hall, Anna felt her pulse quicken. She wasn't ready for this, not yet. "Peter," she whispered, her voice trembling, "I need to tell you something." But Peter was already heading for the door, his focus laser sharp. "Whatever it is, Anna, it'll have to wait. We can't keep them waiting." With a resigned sigh, Anna followed. Every step toward the conference room felt heavier than the last, but she straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin. Whatever happened next, she knew it was time to face it. For the people who had trusted her. For Peter. For herself. As Anna Smith and Peter Anderson stepped into the conference room, a heavy tension clung to the air like a storm waiting to break. Around the polished mahogany table sat the investors, stern men and women with discerning eyes, impatient, curious and formidable. Yet it was one face that seized Anna's attention, an older gentleman with silver hair and a gaze so piercing it seemed to unravel the truth hidden deep inside her. Peter stood tall, his voice confident and steady as he launched into the presentation. He walked them through the strides Anderson Enterprises had made, the efficiency gains, the operational improvements, and the bright future they were shaping. And then he turned toward Anna, pride unmistakable in his tone. And now Peter announced, his smile warm yet resolute, "I'd like to hand this over to the person who made it all possible, Anna Smith." Anna rose slowly, her hands trembling faintly as she straightened the papers before her. The silence that greeted her felt immense, oppressive. Her gaze flicked across the room. Peter, his eyes shining with confidence, William Reed, his expression a mask of cold suspicion, and finally, the older man, watching her with an unsettling intensity. Taking a deep breath, Anna forced her voice to remain steady. "Before I begin my presentation," she began, her words deliberate, "there's something I need to share. Something I uncovered during my investigation that not only impacts this company's history but also my own." A ripple of murmurs swept through the room, confusion and anticipation spreading like wildfire. Peter's brow furrowed, but he said nothing, waiting for her to continue. Anna drew in another breath, gathering her courage. "While analyzing the company's financial records, I found a series of questionable transactions dating back 25 years. Transactions that drove a small family business into bankruptcy and left a child abandoned in the aftermath." The air turned still, heavy with unspoken words. The pounding of Anna's own heart echoed in her ears. "That child," she said softly but firmly, "was me." Gasps filled the room, sharp and unrestrained. Peter froze, his eyes wide with disbelief. But it was the older man, Mr. Kamaru, who became the room's epicenter. Slowly he pushed back his chair, his face pale, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. He stood, his voice raw and trembling. "Anna," he whispered, the name barely escaping his lips. I'm your father." The room descended into chaos. Investors spoke over one another in shock, voices rising into a cacophony of confusion. William Reed's voice broke through the noise with angry accusations of conspiracy and deceit. But for Anna, the room's noise faded into insignificance. In that moment, all that existed was her and the man who had just claimed to be her father, the man who had unknowingly shaped the painful void in her life. Her voice, when she spoke, was barely above a whisper, yet carried an edge of emotion. "Why?" Mr. Kamaru took a hesitant step toward her, his hands shaking as though the weight of the years had finally broken him. "I made terrible choices, Anna. Choices I've regretted every day since. Losing the company destroyed me, I thought. I thought you'd be better off without me. His words hung in the air like a confession decades in the making, laden with regret, shame, and the unmistakable grief of lost time. It was Peter who finally shattered the uneasy silence. His voice was calm, though his face remained etched with disbelief. "Anna," he asked carefully, "did you know this when you came to work here?" Anna turned to face him, shaking her head. "No, I only found out while going through the records. I wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how or when." Peter studied her, the pieces falling into place. "You're not here for revenge, are you?" Anna met his gaze with quiet conviction. "No, I'm here because this company has become my family. All of you, everyone who works here, you've given me a purpose I never knew I could have." Her words, simple yet heartfelt, seemed to reach across the table and settle into the hearts of those listening. Slowly, the room's tension began to lift. The investors exchanged looks, murmurs of understanding replacing the earlier chaos. Mr. Kamaru, now mere steps away from her, looked at his daughter with trembling hope. "Anna," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion, "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but if you'll allow me, I'd like a chance to try and make things right." Anna's gaze moved across the room at Peter, who had taken a risk on her when no one else would, at the investors, who were now looking at her with respect, and finally, back at the man who had been a ghost in her life for so long. After a long pause, she spoke softly but resolutely. "I think we all deserve a second chance." The days following the meeting were nothing short of transformative for Anderson Enterprises. News of the company's innovative direction, fueled by Anna Smith's unique perspective and courage, began to spread through boardrooms and business journals alike. Investors who once approached with caution now spoke with excitement and optimism. The once stagnant company began to bloom, new partnerships emerged, employee morale soared, and for the first time in years, Anderson Enterprises felt alive. Anna, however, was not basking in the praise. The task ahead still loomed large, and her work was far from finished. Sitting in her office on the 49th floor, surrounded by reports, her thoughts swirled with both determination and uncertainty. The sound of a knock pulled her back. "Come in," she said softly, rubbing her tired eyes. The door opened, and Peter Anderson stepped in. Despite the fatigue written on his face, there was a warmth in his expression. "You're working too hard," he said, leaning casually against the doorframe. Anna offered a small smile. "So are you." Peter chuckled and stepped inside, holding up 2 cups of coffee. "Then I guess we both need this." Anna accepted the coffee gratefully. As Peter settled into the chair across from her, he studied her thoughtfully. "Do you realize what you've done, Anna?" he asked quietly. Anna looked at him unsure. "I've done my job." Peter shook his head, his gaze unwavering. "You've done so much more. You've given this company its heart back. And you've given me hope I thought I'd lost forever." Anna looked down, her fingers tracing the rim of the coffee cup. "I don't know about all that, Peter. I'm just trying to do what's right. For everyone." Peter smiled softly. "And that's exactly why it's working. People believe in you, Anna. They trust you because you speak the truth. You've changed everything here, and it's only the beginning." His words touched something deep within her, a mix of pride and disbelief. Before she could reply, Peter's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and stood up. "Investors update meeting starts in 15. Come with me, you need to hear this." The conference room buzzed with quiet anticipation as executives and department heads gathered. For the first time in years, there was a palpable sense of unity, a collective belief that Anderson Enterprises was heading somewhere brighter. Anna stood next to Peter, clutching her notebook as the room settled. William Reed, ever skeptical, sat at the far end of the table, his sharp gaze darting between Peter and Anna. Peter cleared his throat and began. Let's get started. I've asked for this meeting to review the latest figures. Ava, Peter's longtime assistant, stood and handed out documents. These are the quarterly reports compiled as of yesterday. Anna couldn't help but hold her breath. These were the results of weeks of effort, her ideas, the employee input she had gathered, the changes Peter had bravely supported. The numbers would either prove them right or expose the risks they had taken. Peter flipped to the summary and read aloud. Revenue has increased by 20% in the last quarter. Operational costs have decreased by 15% due to the efficiency measures implemented. Employee turnover is down by half, and most important of all, new partnerships are in negotiation stages. The room erupted in murmurs of astonishment. William Reed sat back, his brow furrowing in disbelief. Peter looked around the table, his voice steady. These numbers don't lie. Our changes are working. We're not just surviving anymore, we're growing. Anna felt a surge of relief and pride. All those late nights, the countless interviews, the uphill battle for acceptance, it was paying off. A voice broke through the quiet. It's remarkable. Everyone turned to see Mr. Kamaru, who had flown in again to observe the progress. His calm, deep voice carried weight in the room. I was skeptical at first, Mr. Kamaru admitted, his gaze landing on Anna. But what Ms. Smith has brought to Anderson Enterprises is invaluable. Her connection to the workforce, her unfiltered honesty, it's a rare strength. I am proud to have invested in this company. Peter's eyes found Anna's, and for a moment, everything else faded. She had done it. They had done it. As the meeting adjourned, Peter pulled Anna aside. There's someone I think you need to talk to. Anna looked up at him, puzzled. Who? Peter smiled faintly. Your father. Her heart skipped a beat. Since their first confrontation in front of the investors, Anna had avoided seeing him. The pain, the confusion, it was too raw. But now, standing in the hall, she realized Peter was right. She couldn't run forever. Peter led her to a quiet office where Mr. Kamaru sat, his hands folded on his lap, his posture hesitant. He stood when Anna entered, his face lined with regret. Anna, he said softly. Anna stared at him for a long moment, her emotions warring within her. Finally, she spoke. Why now? Why come back after all this time? He sighed, his voice thick with sorrow. Because I saw you. I saw you standing in front of those investors, strong and unafraid. I saw the woman you've become, and I knew. I had to try. I had to try. I had to tell you the truth. I thought I was protecting you when I left. I was a broken man. And I thought my absence would give you a better life. But I was wrong, Anna. I robbed you of the father you deserved. Tears burned in Anna's eyes, but she blinked them back. You can't undo what's been done. No, he said quietly, but I can try to make it right. If you'll let me. Silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of years lost. Finally, Anna spoke, her voice soft but firm. It'll take time. A hint of a smile broke through his sadness. I'm not going anywhere, Anna. I'll wait as long as it takes. Anna nodded, and for the first time the walls between them began to crumble. That evening, Anna sat alone in her office, her mind racing with thoughts. The success of the company, her father's return, it all felt overwhelming. A knock startled her. She turned to see Sophia Anderson, Peter's 12-year-old daughter, standing shyly at the door. Hi, Anna. Anna smiled, surprised. Sophia, what are you doing here? Sophia stepped inside, holding a sketchbook in her hands. Dad said you've been working too hard. I thought maybe you needed something to cheer you up. Anna chuckled softly. And what's that? Sophia opened the sketchbook, revealing a drawing of a woman in a beautiful suit, standing tall in front of a crowd. Beneath it, she had written Anna Smith, brave and strong. Anna's throat tightened. You drew this for me." Sophia nodded. "You helped my dad smile again. And you helped everyone here believe they can do better. I think you're a hero." Anna blinked back tears, unable to find the words. She reached out and pulled Sophia into a gentle hug. "Thank you, Sophia. I think you're pretty amazing too." Sophia grinned and skipped off, leaving Anna with the sketch in her hands. It was a reminder one she hadn't realized she needed that her work mattered. Weeks later, Anderson Enterprises held its first company-wide celebration in years. The event hall buzzed with laughter, chatter, and a sense of triumph. Employees, executives, and even investors came together to celebrate their shared success. Anna stood near the back, watching as workers she had once cleaned alongside danced and mingled with executives who now saw their value. It was a sight she would never forget. Peter approached her, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "You've been hiding back here long enough," he teased, offering her a glass. Anna accepted it with a smile. "I like seeing it all from here. It's beautiful." Peter clinked his glass lightly against hers. "That's because of you, Anna. You brought us together." Anna looked at him, her eyes reflecting the gratitude she felt. "No, we did this together. You believed in me when no one else did. You took the risk." Peter smiled, his expression soft. Sometimes the greatest risks lead to the greatest rewards. They stood together, watching the celebration unfold. Laughter echoed, friendships grew stronger, and hope filled the air. For Anna Smith, this moment was not just about success. It was about proving that every voice mattered, that people, not numbers, were at the heart of every great company. And for Peter Anderson, it was about redemption. It was about healing the cracks of the past and building something lasting for the future. As the evening drew to a close, Anna stood outside the hall, gazing up at the stars. Peter joined her, his hands in his pockets. "What's next for Anna Smith?" he asked. Anna smiled, her heart full. "I'm not sure. But I think the best is yet to come." Peter nodded, his voice gentle. "I think so too." In the quiet of the night, the city stretched out before them, a city full of possibilities, full of life. For Anna and Peter, this was only the beginning of a story built on trust, courage, and second chances. And as Anna walked away that night, she carried with her a renewed sense of purpose and the knowledge that she was exactly where she was meant to be. If this story of redemption, courage, and second chances has touched your heart, don't forget to hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe to our channel for more inspirational content. In today's story, we witnessed Anna Smith, a woman who began as an invisible janitor, but proved that the most powerful voices often come from unexpected places. Her journey at Anderson Enterprises was filled with challenges, skepticism, resistance, and the weight of her own insecurities, but through her honesty, resilience, and unwavering determination, she transformed not just the company, but also the lives of those around her. From Peter Anderson, a CEO burdened by loss and pressure, to the employees who finally felt seen and heard, Anna's courage became the bridge that brought people together. Along the way, she rebuilt relationships, healed wounds from the past, and reminded everyone that success is not just about numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about people, trust, and unity. This story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most meaningful change begins with someone who dares to believe in themselves. Anna's journey speaks to all of us, no matter who we are or where we come from, that we all have the power to make a difference. Now, we'd love to hear from you. What part of this story resonated with you the most? Have you ever experienced a moment when believing in yourself changed everything? Share your thoughts, reflections, and experiences in the comments below. And if you believe this story could inspire someone you know, don't hesitate to share it with your friends and family. Your support means the world and keeps us motivated to bring you more uplifting and heartfelt stories. Thank you for being part of this journey. Together, we can spread hope and inspiration. Stay tuned for more incredible stories coming your way.